أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبا القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الغرر الميامين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجة على خلاق الأجمعين إمامنا وسيدنا وطاووس أهل الجنة ومهده هذه الأمة فداه أرواح العالمين. Assalamu alaikum ya Imam al-Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. My dearest brothers, sisters, and highly respected elders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Ahfad Jafri, and I am your host for today's lecture, inshallah. And on behalf of Falah Islamic Development, I would like to welcome you all to the to our Ramadan lecture series, Upgrade Yourself, with the Honorable Sheikh Muzaffar Hyder. Tonight is our final lecture of the series, and the title for tonight's discussion is Laylatul Qadr, your chance. And very literally, this is your chance. Chance at anything in life, in this life or the afterlife. Success in this life or the afterlife. Elevation in position in this life or the afterlife. Basically, this is your night to ask Allah for anything and everything. And really quickly, before we begin our discussion tonight, I would like to just take 2 minutes of your time to talk about something very interesting, and that is intention. Because tonight is a night that if you make the right intention, an intention filled with ikhlas, with sincerity, that would be respective to your level of elevation. The more sincerity you have in this thing called a niyyah, the more you will be able to benefit on this very special night. What is intention? Right? It's something that we kind of know. It's something that we do before we make an action, before we make a thought, before we take a step. It's this thing that kind of happens in our mind. And that's something I want to talk to you guys about. That's the point I wanted to make here. The mind. The mind is something that is very essential before making an intention. It's as if there is a platform before we make any step or take any move that sits in our mind, and then we take that step. And that thing that sits in our mind is the intention. But what is the mind? And the mind is a medium, because we don't have time to talk. I want to make a small little talk, but we're going with the assumption that the human being has a spiritual aspect and a physical aspect. And so between this physical aspect and spiritual aspect, what is the position of the mind? And the mind is right in the middle of these two seemingly unrelated realms, and it connects them. It's this platform where the spiritual dimension then tunnels into this physical body, or the other way around. How these physical actions then translate into spiritual actions, spiritual realities. And the intention is that thing in our mind that links these two realms, the physical and the spiritual. And so before we take any step tonight, we have to remember that when we make that intention purely for Allah, it's at that very moment that our action now becomes a spiritual action, an action that can benefit us. So brothers and sisters, tonight, make sure you make the most sincere intention, because only with the intention will your actions then translate into spirituality and something that we can benefit from in a spiritual sense. I've talked way too long. Just really quickly before we start, I would like to request us to recite 5 times Yujibu for the Shifa of Muzaffar Hyder and Sayyid Hyder Hasnain and all those suffer from any sort of illness. So raise your hands in sincere dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحق محمد وآل محمد. May Allah give Kamil, complete shifa to all those suffering from any sort of illness. And without taking any more of your time, I would like to welcome Sheikh Muzaffar Hyder to begin his lecture tonight, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. If I could ask everybody in the remembrance of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and for the sake of all of the pure souls of every shaheed who gave his life in the way of this deen, if I could ask everybody to recite a salawat and to recite Surah Fatiha. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. I'd like to start by thanking the honorable organizers of this event and thanking Brother Ahfad, our dear beloved host, for so eloquently and so poignantly pointing out some very good details. This is the final lecture, inshallah, of this series. I hope people have benefited from it. And incidentally, our final lecture is coinciding with the first most agreed upon night, which could be one of the nights of Qadr. So we have the 19th, the 21st, and the 23rd. These three nights are most likely to be the night of destiny. And so tonight I wanted to spend a little bit of time just opening up the idea and the concept of Laylatul Qadr from the Holy Quran itself, so that we can remind ourselves of just how great this night is. It says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatil Qadr. Surely we revealed it in the night of Qadr. Revealed what? Revealed the Quran. This Quran of ours was revealed on this night. The inspiration for humankind through Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. It was sent down to him on this night. Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr. And then Allah says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. And what will make you recognize what Laylatul Qadr actually is? Remember, this is Allah. This is the Creator. This is the cause of all causes, trying to explain to us, limited creations of His, how great this night is. Now, what this night is it's better than 1,000 months. Why 1,000 months? Now, there's a philosophy behind this, and I don't want to go into the details of it, but when you calculate 1,000 months, it comes up to around 83 years. That's a lifetime, an ordinary lifetime, the lifespan of a human being. Now, many times we think to ourselves, I wish that I could have spent my entire life as an ascetic, as a pious person, completely dedicated to him in every way. How many times have we wished for such a thing? Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alf shahr. Laylatul Qadr. This is what it is. It's better than 1,000 months. And so if we spend this one night, this is how merciful Allah really is. If we spend this one night dedicated holistically to Allah, it is as if we've spent an entire lifetime absolutely dedicated to him. It brings tears to my eyes to think about it and how little attention we actually give to this night. If we truly wished to live an entire lifespan of a human being completely and entirely dedicated to Allah, then this is our chance. This is our opportunity. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, look at the world around us. Look at what 2020 brought about. Look at every event that took place and see for yourself how exponentially the world is increasing in the great events which are taking place, which almost every single day you're seeing a news article, which if it had happened in any other time throughout the 20th or 19th century, it would have been talked about for months and maybe even years. And yet such great cataclysmic and political events are taking place in the world today that when you look at the news, you just turn away from it. You just turn away and you're like, oh, it's just another event. Nothing seems big anymore. Why? This is my question. Why? We have to, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, recognize that we truly are running out of time. And this is, we called the lecture Your Chance, but there's a hidden insinuation behind this. That look, dear brothers and sisters, I dare to say it, this may be our last chance. If we're watching this, if anybody is watching this in 2021, congratulations, you survived. If you're watching this after 2021, congratulations, you survived. We have no idea what this year is going to bring us, because if we look at it just exponentially, as I said, the events are increasing. Why am I saying this point, and how is it relevant to Surah Qadr? This is one of those surahs which I personally overlooked. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's relevant to the month of Ramadan, it's relevant to the night of Qadr, but the rest of the year, why do we have to really recite it? I prefer to recite Surah Inna A'tainaka al-Kawthar because it's shorter and we could just get through it faster. This is sometimes what we do because we're lazy inherently. Why is Surah Qadr, the surah of destiny, so heavy that there is a great amount of emphasis on reciting this, particularly from Imam al-Hujjatul Qa'im al-Mahdi, our living, breathing Imam who roams this earth today. He walks among us though he is unrecognized. Why is it that he himself has recommended this and put such an amount of emphasis on reciting this surah in particular? Let me just go through the surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr. Surely we revealed it in the night of Qadr. And then what does he say? What does he say? What does Allah tell us? Tanazzalul malaikatu war-ruh fiha bi'idhni rabbihim min kulli amr. He sends down the angels and the ruh, two things, the angels and the ruh, and with them he brings kull amr, every affair, every ordainment, every command, every bit of your destiny is being plotted. Everything that you will be potentially accomplishing in the coming year, everything that will happen to you, how much money you will be earning, how many people you will be meeting, which direction you will be walking in, where you are going to be living, how you are going to be spending your life, whether you are going to be getting married or not, whether you're going to be getting along with your spouse or not, whatever you can possibly imagine, all of it is being written in the night of Qadr. 2 points that I wanted to allude to here. Number one, what is the malaika? What are these angels? And what is the ruh? There is a common misconception. Malaika, we somewhat understand, it's the angels. Allah is saying that He's sending down the angels on this night. But what is the ruh? There's a common misconception. People think that the ruh is the angel Jibreel, Gabriel. But this is not what the popular Shia school of thought, the popular understanding of the Shia school of thought says. No, the ruh actually is something completely different. The Quran, and we can find this in other places in the Quran. For example, it says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the ruh. What is this ruh? It's sometimes translated as the spirit. And this is why people have misunderstood it, because the Christians have interpreted such things as the Holy Spirit, the Spirit, the great archangel, Gabriel himself. But that's not the reality. And I can understand why some people would think this, because he is a particular angel, and through him Allah sent the Holy Quran to the Holy Prophet. But if Allah wanted to say the angel Gabriel, then He's already said it, because He said that the angels get sent down, and Jibreel is one of the angels. You see, why is this ruh something in particular? The ruh is the command of Allah according to the Quran itself. Okay, the ruh is that which Allah breathed into Adam, the spirit which all of us, a part of it, we possess. Allah breathed of His spirit, His ruh, into the human race. Some of it. Allah is sending that down. That's the first point. We need to reflect on what this actually means. The Spirit of Allah is being sent down. For some who have ascended to a certain degree, they will feel it trickling down upon them, a feeling of divine inspiration, a feeling that almost like rain, and it's giving us growth, like as if we're plants. It is something divine. It's almost miraculous in nature. There's something magical, for want of a better word, happening in this night, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. We have to start to recognize that now, tonight, inshallah. That's the first point. The second point is, Allah is sending down His angels. What does this have to do with Imam Zaman, with our Imam? And how do we understand that this night has a direct relation to the Imam of the time? Well, if Allah is sending down the angels, as He has done throughout history to the prophets of the past and those who had taken their souls to a certain degree, and it was to that degree where they could actually accept and receive that divine message, then we need to understand that there has to be somebody on earth today who also has that capacity to bear that wahi, that divine inspiration, that message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who is that individual? Otherwise, look, it's a recurring thing. Tanazzalul malaika. Allah says He sends down, and this word tanazzalul, it is indicative of it being a recurring thing. It happens year after year after year. Why would Allah send down a message if there's nobody to receive it? Allah doesn't do things in vain. He doesn't just do things just willy-nilly, God forbid. Na'udhu billah. This is not our understanding of Allah. No, if the message is coming down, if Allah is sending down the angels and His ruh, there has to be somebody with the capacity to achieve it and receive it in its fullest potential. That is, in today's age, Imam al-Hujjatul Qa'im al-Mahdi. And so our relation to Imam Mahdi can be strengthened in this night. And we're going to come back to this point. But first, I want to point out something. We have to recognize that while the day of the night of Laylatul, the night of Qadr, the night of destiny is hidden from us, i.e., we don't actually know whether it's the 19th night, or it's the 21st, or it's the 23rd, although most of the ahadith tell us that it's one of these 3 nights, that it's at the end of Ramadan, but in the middle of Ramadan, but it could be this one, but it could be that one. The Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was approached, and he was asked, do you know when it is? And he said, of course I know. How? I see the angels with my own eyes. They come down and they encircle me. They come and they speak to me. I hear them. I see them with my own eyes. We have to recognize the status of Imam al-Hujjah. This is what our Imam is. He witnesses them. Within the soul of the Imam of our time is a similar capacity to that of his great-grandfather, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Just a very quick point which came to my mind just now. Ali alayhi salam, since this is a night where we're commemorating the Shahada of Imam Ali alayhi salam as well, Imam Ali alayhi salam would hear something. He would hear the voice of the angel Gabriel, and he would say, nobody else is hearing it. Rasulullah would hear it. And he would say, oh, Ali, you haven't gone crazy. I hear it as well. Don't worry. And then he would tell Ali, oh, Ali, whatever I hear, you also hear it. And whatever I see, you also witness it. You are partaking in this part. In other words, he's partaking in this prophetic mission and this prophetic journey. We have to recognize the divine status of the Imams. Although at the same time, we have to recognize that they're human beings. Allah sent human beings, and He's showing us that, look, this is your potential, dear brothers and sisters. One of the greatest mistakes that we make, particularly, unfortunately, among the Shia and among the Sunnis as well, is that, look, we look at the prophets and Imams as people who have arrived at a certain status, and we praise them and we love them. That's not the point. The Quran describes the Prophet as uswatun hasana. He is an example, a great example for you, a role model. We are supposed to be stepping and embarking upon that same journey of the prophets and Imams. If we do this, then perhaps, inshallah, a little tiny bit, if Allah gave them the ocean of inspiration, perhaps Allah will spray some of the drips of that ocean upon us. Perhaps Allah will give us some of the splatters, the refreshing splashes of that ocean upon our faces, and so that we can be a little bit enlightened too. But in order to achieve anything of that like, we need to embark on their journey. We need to look at what they did and try to do the same. Now, this and the last verse, this is just one other point about Surah Qadr before we move on, and then we'll go to Q&A, inshallah. The Quran tells us, Salamun hiya hatta matla'il fajr. It is peace until the rising of the sun, until the dawn, until Fajr time. Peace, tranquility. What does this mean? Sometimes you'll look at the world and you'll see there is no peace. Me and you, we're watching this right now, you know, we're watching our lectures, we're going about our daily lives. Think about the true mu'mineen who are out there on the battlefields, those who are suffering in Yemen, those who are fighting on the battlefields, those who are giving their lives for the sake of Islam. Inshallah, you know, their iman is at a far greater height than ours is. We are just crawling while they are flying through the divine skies of Allah. Okay. Now, when they read these verses, it means something entirely different for them. In one hand, they're holding their weapons, their AK-47s. On the other hand, they're holding their Qur'ans. One moment they're glancing at the Quran, the next moment they're glancing at the horizon to see if they're being attacked by the Saudis or by Israel or by the Americans. Okay, imagine the status that Allah is giving them while they are doing the dhikr of Allah and remembering Allah. They are also doing jihad in Allah's way. Subhanallah, we can only imagine and hope to partake in any level of what they have reached. Now, for them, when they're in the battlefields and they read such a verse, it's peace until the Fajr, it's going to mean something completely different. For us, we're sitting at home. We're looking up at the sky. It's beautiful. What does this mean? We have to recognize that this is not talking about this lowly dunya. In this dunya, there may be no peace. There may be no sense of tranquility. There may be bombs falling. There may be people shouting. There may be raised voices. There may be anything but what you can imagine to be any form of peace. What is this peace referring to? Perhaps what this verse is referring to is the peace and the tranquility that we will find on the spiritual stratospheres of our dimension. For those who attended the lecture on the universe or the university of Tawassul, remember we talked about Allah being at the core, and then around him are the malaika, and around them are the Ahlul Bayt and the spiritually ascended ones and the awliya. And around that are many spiritual veils and curtains. And then you go a further degree, in a further dimension, then you will find us in this lowly, lowly world. Remember, dear brothers and sisters, dunya comes from another word which means adna, which means the lowest of the low. We're actually on the outermost limit of the realities of existence itself. And one way that we can comprehend this is, imagine just for a moment, Allah is not the sun, but let's try to comprehend this for a moment through the analogy of the sun. Allah, imagine he's the sun. Out of this sun, all light is emanating. And the further away you get from the source of this light, the sun itself, the further away you get from it, the light becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and it becomes lesser and lesser and lesser until you get to the outer limits. That is where we are. We're still a part of it. We're still a part of that the entirety of the picture, and Allah is still reaching us, but we're on the outer limits of that. My point is that perhaps this peace that we're talking about is within those layers of the spiritual veils and curtains that prevail throughout the year. Sometimes you approach Allah and you feel like there's some sort of barrier, some sort of wall, some sort of veil. Now, in these nights, this is your chance, because those veils will be lifted. The shayateen won't be there to disrupt the journey of your prayers and your thoughts and your ambitions. No disturbances will be there. And so it's almost like the gates are open. Allah is inviting you and he's saying, come, open up. The doors are open. Step through. There is nothing that is now going to hold you back. The ruh of Allah is ascending now. The command of Allah is ascending. Allah has given you power. One way that they translate Qadr is power. One way is destiny, one way is power. This power is coming and falling into your hands. All affairs are going to be decided of the coming year, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. All affairs. I want you now to just think for a moment. Imagine, think about your life so far. Think about it so far. What have you accomplished? What have you done? How have you improved? How have you served the cause of Islam? Which weaknesses have you managed to overcome? How have you been able to overcome certain fears that you previously had? It may be that sisters out there previously were afraid of what their family and friends might think of them if they start to adopt hijab. Now, mashallah, they've started to wear hijab. There might be some brothers out there who didn't understand certain things about Islam. We've come a long way, subhanAllah, and I'm seeing some beautiful things from the youths out there. Beautiful things, which if you look at the generations before, they were not there. And so we've come a long way, and yet we have a long, long way to go. The Imam has not returned, which doesn't only mean that we are not prepared, dear brothers and sisters. It also means that if the Imam were to return now, he would be killed. And God forbid, we could be the ones to do it, to initiate it. Think now about the loneliness of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali, think about him just for a moment. Our Mawla, Ali alayhi salam, who is the fulcrum, without whom your religion is completely incomplete. It is only on Eid Ghadir when the Holy Prophet holds up the hand of Imam Ali alayhi salam and says, Man kuntum Mawla fahada aliyum Mawla. He says, for whomsoever I am the Mawla, for whomsoever I am the master, this Ali is also the master. Only and only when the Prophet said this did the verse or the part of the verse get revealed. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam dina. This day have I become pleased with this religion for you. I've completed my favor upon you, and I have completed my religion. Only with Ali does your religion become complete. Now think a moment about Ali. Think about his loneliness. As we mentioned previously, Ibn Muljim, the one who brought the sword down upon the blessed head of Ali. Ibn Muljim was previously a lover of Ali. Only when Ali came to power and started to enter the political sphere did he start to hate Ali. We have to be very conscious and careful now. Imam Mahdi is going to return. We could be among those who, when the dhuhur happens and we see that he is confronting the enemies and we see that there is bloodshed taking place, and this is a necessary step in order to establish justice and establish the Tawheed of Allah on earth. When we see these things, we could start to hate Ali. We could start to hate Imam Mahdi. How do we overcome this now in this night? How do we recognize that we are connected to our Mawla Imam Mahdi? Think about everything that you want to accomplish in the coming year. 2022, in fact, the rest of 2021 and 2022 could be the year where we turn everything around, where we change everything, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. It could be the year where we see people in their hundreds of thousands, in their millions, if not billions of people on earth coming towards the religion afwaja, coming to the religion in flocks and drones. Why? Because when we look at the world, dear brothers and sisters, we see very clearly a pattern evolving. In fact, it's already evolved. Every single person in the world is dissatisfied. If there's somebody out there who's who's still satisfied with the status quo, please point him out to me. Look at the protests which are taking place in France, in America, in England, in India, in Pakistan. Look at the masses, even despite the virus that we're surrounded by, despite everything. Look at how people are hating Boris Johnson in the UK, hating on Biden, hating on Trump, hating on Modi in India, hating on every other politician out there. There is nowhere where you will find peace in this dunya. Why? We have to ask ourselves, why is Allah making it happen? إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. The believers, the Quran tells us, are those who see. The disbelievers are those who see it as far away, whereas the believers are those who see it as close. Don't be deceived into thinking that the dhuhur is far away. No. Next year, we can turn everything around. How? Think about those necessary steps that need to be taken and take them. Just take them. Stop thinking so much about it. Stop being afraid. Stop letting other people hold your back, whether it's those who you think are your close friends, whether it's your family members, whether it's your cousins, whether it's your parents, whether it's scholars even in your community. You know what it takes to make a change in the world. You know what little change you can bring. I want to give you a very quick example, because one of the tricks that Shaitan plays on us is he makes you think that you have no power and no potential. You can't do anything. And so in this night, I want to show you that Allah is showing us that you have the power. Prophet Ibrahim, he was attacked, assaulted, imprisoned by the Taghut of his time. Notice how every prophet, the religion of Islam, has always been about assault, fighting back, resistance against the Taghut, resistance against the enemies who are making injustice prevail. He was fighting and speaking out against the Taghut of his time, Nimrud. And so Nimrud and the other Tawaghit who existed, the other oppressors, they invented the catapult. At that time, this was like, whoa, scientific genius. They invented the catapult for the first time in human history. This is how it was invented. And Shaitan himself came to the Taghut, according to some of our hadith, and taught them how to build the catapult. And so throughout history, we see, especially throughout the medieval era, the catapult was used to murder masses and masses of people. Do not be surprised if weapons of mass destruction, like the nuclear bombs, the atomic bombs, which were used to kill 200,000 people in Japan in a single day by America, the great Satan, don't be surprised if the inspiration for the creation of the mechanism of the atomic bomb wasn't inspired by Shaitan himself. These inspirations come from Shaitan. Why did they have to build a catapult? Because they had created a fire. This fire was so tremendous and so big that if you go to the ahadith, they say that birds flying in the sky would be scorched. Even though they were very, very high in the sky, they would be scorched if they tried to fly over the fire. That's how big it was. They wanted to create a spectacle. Look at how much the mentality of people has to play in this. Look at how much this has to do with changing the mentality of people. They were doing a soft war against the people. They wanted to show them that Ibrahim spoke against us, and now we're going to burn him in the biggest fire you've ever witnessed in your life. But once they'd made such a big fire, they had no way to take the Prophet close to it. They had no way to take him close to it. If anybody went close to it, they would burn. And so they invented the catapult in order to throw him into it. What happens to this fire? Now, I don't want to go into what happens at the end. We know what happens at the end of the story, and it's very beautiful. But I want to bring our attention to the seemingly most insignificant part of this chapter. The frog. The frog. Yes, the frog. According to some hadith, there was a tiny creature. Some say it was a frog. Some say it was a bird. Some say it was a tiny fly. This tiny, tiny creature took tiny little droplets of water in its mouth, and it went to that tremendous fire and spat it onto the fire. It went back to the other creatures. Maybe those other creatures mocked it and said, these humans are all standing around. Even they are watching this happen. They're not stupid enough to try and put out this fire. They're much bigger than you. And yet you're trying to do this when you're just a tiny little creature. Allah so loved the action of this creature that he inspired it. And so Allah, according to one hadith, it was a fly. And because of this tiny action that this fly did, Allah inspired it to create honey. And so we have honey today. Allah so loved the tiny action. All this creature said is, look, I know I might not be able to make a difference, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's the most that I can possibly do. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, this is a tiny creature who attempted to save the Imam and the Prophet of its time. It attempted to save Prophet Ibrahim. And so Allah exalted it. And it is remembered more than all of those thousands of people who stood by and watched as their Prophet, as the Taghut attempted to destroy their Prophet. we have to ask ourselves, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, look at what is happening in today's age. Look at what is happening. Do you not see that Ali alayhi salam was alone in his time? He was attacked in the masjid in his time. There was a propaganda campaign done against Ali alayhi salam to such an extent that when he was assassinated in the masjid, somebody said, I didn't even know that Ali went to the masjid. Ali, our Mawla Ali, we know him today as somebody who prayed prayers like nobody else apart from the Holy Prophet prayed prayers. Today we know him as that ascetic. Today we know him as that namazi. Today we know him as that person who prayed salah like nobody else did. But back then, the propaganda campaign of Muawiyah was so strong that they thought that Ali was a terrible man, that he never entered the masjids. The loneliness of Ali alayhi salam was such that those who were around him, those who proclaimed to be among his Shia, did not fight back. They did not speak up. They did not defend Ali, who was nothing but an epitome of Islam. Today, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, do you not see that again Ali is being attacked in the masjid? Do you not see that Islamophobia is rampant? Do you not see that Islam is being attacked on the head? Do you not see that the face of Islam throughout the mainstream media is covered in blood? Do you not see that hijabs are being snatched? Do you not see that Muslims are being attacked out there? Do you not see that Palestine is being assaulted, that Yemen is being blockaded and assaulted? Do you not see that there are sanctions on the Islamic Republic of Iran? Do you not see that the mainstream media is highlighting and choosing its representatives, such as the Takfiri Wahhabis and those who are nothing but infidels and complete ISIS and munafiqeen? Do we not see that they are using those representatives to destroy and attack and obliterate Islam? Do we not see it? If we want to prove that we truly are those elite soldiers of Imam Mahdi, then this is the night, inshallah, to pray for the true, sincere tawfiq to serve the cause and to enter wholeheartedly into the soft war arena. We are not like those who are out there shedding their own blood, sacrificing their time and energy, leaving their family, leaving their wives. Do you think they don't love their wives as we love our wives? They probably love their wives more. Do you think that those shuhada, the members of Hezbollah, the members of Zainabiyun, the members of Fatimiyun, those who went to defend the shrines, those who are constantly, it is because of them that the religion is arriving into our hearts. If it wasn't for the blood of the martyrs and the ink of the scholars, no ounce and no iota of this religion would ever have reached us today, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. It is because of their sacrifices. Now, nobody is asking us to go into the battlefield, the military battlefield. Nobody is telling us to take up arms. The least that we can do is make our presence known in the soft war arena. Let everybody out there know that the face of Islam which the enemies are presenting is not the true face. Do not, again, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, do not ever let anybody make you think you can't do anything. I hear so often from dear brothers and sisters out there, they come and say, Sheikh, I want to do something, but I don't have speaking skills. Who told you you don't have speaking skills? Who convinced you that you don't have the ability to speak? And in fact, how are you going to ever learn how to speak if you don't go out there and speak? Do you think those who have gone out there to the military battlefront just learned how to use their weaponries overnight? No, they entered the battlefield, and through it, Allah taught them how to use those weapons and how to defend their lands against the likes of Israel and against the likes of America. It is through entering the battlefield that Allah will help you. Many a times we ask ourselves, why am I not spiritually ascending? How can you expect to spiritually ascend when you are not in the battlefield? You need to do jihad. Even the hadith, look at this hadith, which often gets told to us. The Holy Prophet says that the greater jihad is that which you do against yourself. We've heard this so many times, right? There were those soldiers of Islam, brave soldiers who had gone out there to fight They are returning from the battlefield. The Holy Prophet says to them, congratulations, you have completed the lesser jihad. Now all that remains is the greater jihad. And so they ask him, Ya Rasulullah, what is the greater jihad? And he says it is to do the jihad of the self. This is true, and it's an authentic hadith, and Imam Khomeini talks about this in his book, Chail Hadith, 40 Hadith. It's very true, authentic. This is the reality. The greater jihad is the jihad of the self. My dear brothers and sisters, I ask you one simple question. Who is the Prophet addressing in this hadith? He is addressing those very soldiers, those who have gone and done the lesser jihad. Why? Perhaps the wisdom behind it could be this, that in order to embark on the greater jihad, you have to first be a part of the lesser jihad. It is the prerequisite to spiritual ascension. And this is why so many times we see in the society, those who are talking about spiritual ascension, those who are talking about getting closer to Allah, this night will benefit you, dear brothers and sisters, if you make it your intention to enter the battlefield. The Ali of our time is being attacked. The fact that our Imam has not returned shows us that he would be killed if he returns, because we're not ready. Look at what is happening to our religion and rise to the call. You want to do jihad? What did we say previously, dear brothers and sisters? There are levels to Iman. You want to be a Muslim, you want to be a mu'min, you want to be an awliya Allah, you want to be a Shia? First be a mu'min. What does the Quran tell us about being a mu'min? إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Only those are believers who believe in Allah. They have no doubts and they do jihad with their properties and with their selves. With their properties and with their selves, dear brothers and sisters. We have to do jihad in order to be a believer. Don't be surprised if you haven't heard this before, dear brothers and sisters, because so far Shiaism is in a complete state in the West. In the English-speaking world, Shiaism is in its embryonic state. And so the only type of Islam which actually prevails is a type of Islam which puts you into your comfort zone. That is what most scholars, unfortunately, I'm just telling you the realities. I don't have any personal grudge. I don't have any personal jealousy or hasad. I'm telling you this straight up on the level. If you want to hear the reality, this is the reality. Most scholars will tell you what you want to hear. They will tell you that you're a beautiful mu'min, you're a great Muslim, you're doing everything right. They won't tell you the realities because most people get turned off by it. They don't want to hear it anymore. Most people want to turn off their screens and not hear the sheikh who's barking down the screen at them. They don't want to hear it. The reality is Islam requires far much more than what you have initially thought. There is much more that is expected from you, dear brothers and sisters. You cannot be satisfied with doing the bare minimum. This is your life that we're talking about. And this is not only your life, but we're talking about the destiny of the entire world, dear brothers and sisters. You have the potential to change the fate of the entire planet. If you see that oppression is taking place, the only person who has the ability to change it is Imam al-Hujjatul Qa'im. And guess what? He is waiting for you to make a change and implement that change inside yourself. If you don't make that change, the change in the world will never happen. And this is why many of those who have embarked on trying to bring about any change in the world say that be the change that you wish to see in the world. If you wish to see a world of peace, of justice, of tranquility, a world with the hukumat of Allah prevails, where Tawheed prevails, then you need to implement everything that Islam requires of you into your life. Sins? You're committing sins, dear brothers and sisters. What are we doing? I know I've gone over my time, but please allow me to continue. Please allow me to continue, because if we don't take this chance and opportunity now, and I'm speaking to myself before I speak to anybody else, I hope that nobody out there thinks that I'm being arrogant here. Please let me continue, and let me just say what's on my mind, because we might not be given another chance. Sins? Really? We're committing sins still? It's 2021. How, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, how can we still be committing sins? How? Which level of Iman had not been sent to us? Which part of this pure divine religion has not reached our hearts and our minds? Which part of the message did we not receive? What excuse, dear brothers and sisters, will we possibly be able to present in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having committed so many sins? How? Think about the sins that we're committing. Think about how petty they are, how pathetic they are, how beneath us they are. Ali alayhi salam, the man who we are commemorating these nights, what did he say? You were created for Jannah. You were created for the higher realms. Allah created, He breathed into you of His spirit, of His ruh. You were designed for something far greater than what we have lessened ourselves to. وَخَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And we created human beings in the best make. That is how Allah created us, but then He rendered us of the lowest of the low. We have the highest of the high potential to be even greater than the angels. What possible excuse can we present to Allah on the Day of Judgment and say, Allah, because of this, I committed sins? They say, there is a beautiful hadith, dear brothers and sisters, those who are committing sins because they think they're so beautiful, they think they're so good looking, they commit sins out there with the opposite gender. Astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah. How could we commit such pathetic sins which were beneath us? On the Day of Judgment, the beautiful woman who presents the argument that I was so beautiful that I just could not help but share my selfies and beautify myself in front of other men, na-mahrams. Allah will bring Hazrat Maryam and say, look, she was more beautiful than you. She safeguarded her chastity. Why did you not do it? And for those men who commit sins because they think to themselves, I'm so good looking, I have the right to commit sins, Allah will bring Prophet Yusuf and say, were you more handsome and more good looking than him? He was able to get through this life and not commit any sins. Why were you not able to? We have no excuse, dear brothers and sisters. But the final point that I wanted to raise in tonight's lecture, please forgive me, I know I've gone over my time, but as I said, this might be our final chance, dear brothers and sisters, and so I want to make the most out of it. The final point is this. One thing that has absolutely mesmerized me and astonished me about many of the youths that we find today is they feel that they have the right to not use what Allah has given them for the sake of Allah. i.e., Allah has given them certain skills, certain talents, and they think it's up to them whether they use those skills and talents for the sake of Islam or not. For instance, there might be a brother out there who has speaking skills. There might be somebody out there who has certain scientific capabilities, somebody who might have studied engineering, somebody who might have any kind of skill. This skill is from Allah. How dare we think to ourselves, Allah has given me a skill, but it's my choice whether I use it for the sake of Islam or not. I'm only saying this because this is actually something which I have seen. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, any skill, any talent, whether it's an artistic skill, an intellectual skill, an academic skill, a video, software, designing, engineering skill, whatever skill you may have, do not ever think that you have the right to use it for anything other than the cause of Allah, anything other than the cause of Islam. This is actually the reality, because if you use that skill anywhere else, you're actually to an extent wasting it. And on the Day of Judgment, do not think that you will be able to say that this was my privilege. No, this isn't like that. No, this is a skill. Allah is testing you with it. You have to use it for the sake of Islam. If you have a physique, if Allah has given you physique, if Allah has given you a strong mind, you have to use it for the sake of Islam. Dear brothers and sisters, you have this night ahead of you. It's either the 19th, it's either the 21st, or it's the 23rd. Insha'Allah, may you pray for the tawfiq to use whatever skills and talents you have purely and solely and sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah help us to make use of these nights so that we can play a significant role in the huge changes that we're going to see ahead of us, because the world is not going to be the same. In fact, the world which our children inherit is going to be vastly different to the world that we have become accustomed to. I'd like everybody else, inshallah, to pray that Allah helps us to get connected to Imam al-Mahdi in these nights. I ask everybody to pray that inshallah, Allah helps us to receive some iota of that divine inspiration which Allah bestowed upon the prophets from Adam up until Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and onwards throughout the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, help us in every way to overcome our sins, whether those are practical, physical sins which manifest themselves, or those sins which we do internally. Oh Allah, purify our hearts in the coming year of all types and all manner of sins, whether those sins are spiritual diseases like jealousy, hasad, greed, shahwa, lust, anger, whatever those sins are. Oh Allah, we can't become perfect. We can never perfectly serve the cause of Islam. But oh Allah, help us in whatever manner we can to help and reach out to those who are oppressed out there, so that at least on the Day of Judgment we can say, oh Allah, I saw that Muslims were calling for aid and I did whatever I could to draw attention to their suffering. Oh Allah, our Imam is in ghaibah, so have pity on us, for sometimes the right way isn't clear. But oh Allah, help us to recognize that that which is absolutely clear is the atrocity and the absolute tyranny which is prevailing at the hands of the great tyrants, the great Satan America, and the great Tawaghit which exist. And therefore, whatever evils that we see the enemy is doing, help us, oh Allah, to at the very least, speak out against it. Oh Allah, help us to recognize that if we wish to do jihad in your way, if we wish to do spiritual ascension and get closer to you, then one of the best ways to do jihad, as per your messenger, O Allah, is kalimatu haqqin 'inda sultanin ja'ir, to speak a word of truth in the face of those tyrants and to take the truth and throw it in their faces. Oh Allah, help us to overcome our fears, inshallah. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Brother, I know that we've overgone our time and I'm very, very sorry for that. There were some points that I wanted to get across, and because it's the last night, I just wanted to get it all out. If it's convenient for you, I don't still mind taking any questions that might be there, inshallah. Or otherwise, if it's not convenient, and I understand that people need to go to iftar or suhoor or other things that we're attending. If it's not convenient, then please do just be frank. It's absolutely fine. We can end it now. The ball is in your court.
We have some questions here. I feel like some of them may stretch on a little long, but we have this one question here that is a little bit off topic, so maybe a little more lighthearted that we could possibly.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. My teacher told me that Hawza doesn't need inept and talentless people. First, achieve something so that you can be of some help to the Imam of your time. Just passing high school is not enough. What do you say? Also, can I do both college and Hawza simultaneously?
Very good question. You can do both simultaneously. And to an extent, I would agree. It's not only about having some sort of skill or some sort of developing some sort of talent before you acquire those Islamic preliminary sciences as well. It's also about other things like experiencing work ethics, experiencing what it's like to actually, have to earn a livelihood with your own hands. Sometimes what happens is when brothers and sisters enter the hawza is they become a little bit detached from the realities which are being faced by people out there. And so they go into this hawzawi mode. And what happens is they become disconnected from the common masses. They don't understand that, look, this person is working from like 9 to 5, and then he's exhausted, and then he's coming and he's giving time to listen to your lecture or read your book or whatever. And so that level of understanding needs to be there to an extent. At the same time, I've seen some remarkable students who have come and started studying, and I would also recommend that people come as early as possible. So it depends on the individual how they're going to reconcile these two things: the practicality of real world affairs, and also hawza studies, and gaining those skills so that you can actually give back to society as well. There's also another thing. The holy city of Qom has actually designed its curriculum in such a way where, after doing hawza studies and fulfilling all those preliminary steps of the hawza, they teach you those sciences. So there are certain social sciences that you can go into within the hawza structure. So they'll teach you, for example, psychology or some sort of skill, computer science or whatever it is. They will teach you that, or the university systems which exist throughout Iran as well. So a lot of hawza students do that. They go into further studies and they start to gain those skills after they've completed their hawzawi academia. So these are just some points for you to reflect on, inshallah. And may Allah help you and give you the tawfiq to make the best decision for yourself and for the sake of the cause.
Inshallah, Shaykh, if you think, shall we call off the program now?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely fine, inshallah.
Okay. We had, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We had a lot of questions that were quite related to the topic you were talking about, but one question that was very predominant was everyone was shouting, how can I serve? I have this talent, I'm 14, I'm 15, I want to do this, I want to do that. How can I serve? We don't have time to address all of these, I would imagine, as we're running quite late already, but there is something I can offer you guys, and that is a link. I'm going to send it in the description now. Any of the youths that are out there that want to do something, if you click this link, then inshallah we could help you and take it maybe another step forward. And that link, I'm sending it right now. Type this in your Safari browser or Internet Explorer on a phone that has WhatsApp, and that's bit.ly/joinfnc. And inshallah, we can give you guys something that you can do, manifest some of your skills and talents in a way to serve the Imam. But guys, alhamdulillah, we have now reached the end of our program and the end of our lecture series. I thank all of our respected brothers, sisters, and dear elders that they stuck with us through these 8 or 9 days. And I thank especially Sheikh Muzaffar Hyder, who continuously and consistently strived, even through thick and thin, through his good days and his difficult days, his sickness, his illnesses, his healthy days. He was there with us and he served us, and he gave us very inspiring and very energetic, especially today. I felt the blood moving in my veins today. Lectures.
God bless you. God bless you, Brother Affan, and God bless everybody for attending. You could have been doing anything. You could have been among those who are, just completely frivolously going out and just, there's people out there who are going to parties. There's people out there going to pubs. There's people out there who are going to bars. They're going to discos. Well, I mean, COVID has knocked everything down, but there's all sorts of sins taking place there. Allah has safeguarded you, dear brothers and sisters. You've come in these nights and you've wanted to listen. You've opened up your ears and you've opened up your hearts. Know this, that you are special. Allah has chosen you for something unique, something that you can offer. And you just have to figure out what that is, and Allah will guide you, inshallah. Sorry, I have to say this. The Quran says, وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِي قَلْبَهُ. One who believes in Allah, Allah will guide his heart. Recognize this. Believe in Allah, make those necessary steps, make your intention, see the magic happen, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for your everlasting words, honestly. Inshallah, we can all go back to these lectures as well and take time. They are all available on the Fulla Islamic Development YouTube channel. And just to finish off, I ask Allah that He forgives us our sins and accepts our little efforts. May He increase our sustenance and our knowledge and our understanding.
Ilahi Ameen.
Give us a pure heart to worship Him with utmost
Ilahi
sincerity.
Ameen.
All remember us, especially in these very beautiful and brilliant opportunistic nights that are coming up. And on behalf of Fulla Islamic Development, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.